During this COVID crisis, many of us are staying connected online more than ever. But not all conversations are contributing to the greater good, and it's easy to let out the worst in us. What if, instead of burning ourselves out criticizing and complaining, we made the best of a bad situation and did life a little differently? Actor Tom Hanks, recovering at home from COVID-19, hosted last week's Saturday Night Live, an experimental episode where cast members recorded their own skits from home.
Now, this Saturday Night Live is going to be a little different. For one thing, it has been filmed entirely by the SNL cast who are currently quarantined in their homes just like this. Well, I mean, not like this home. I mean, their homes are a little more like, you know what, I'm going to let you be the judge of that.
21 Pilots released Level of Concern, where band members are seen recording instruments in their own home and sharing the files on a flash drive through the mail. This video ends with a bit of a twist and some social commentaries for good measure. John Krasinski began the Good News Show, releasing short videos on social media highlighting good things people are doing for one another during these crazy times.
In Michigan, one high school principal would not let quarantine prevent her from awarding the school's highest honor to a more than deserving graduate.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi.
So, I got you on camera because I want to announce something to you today.
Okay.
You are GTA's 2020 class valedictorian.
I do?
You are.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
The good news is, you don't have to be rich or famous to make a difference. All of us have a circle of influence, and your circle needs you. Just because your neighbor isn't sick or out of work doesn't mean there's nothing we can do. We are called to make the world a better place. We don't need a global pandemic to get going. This is the stuff we're made for. A high school student using a 3D printer to make face shields. People in songs begin recording music in the living room.
The old rugged cross.
And a family right down the street from us set out individually packed candies and dog treats with a big chalkboard telling families walking by to please help yourself. So what about you? What can you do? Now this is the time for the church to shine. Let the world see a side of us they didn't know we had. Brighten someone's day with, well, that's where you come in. This week, come up with your own creative ideas. Brainstorm with everyone in your house. Get the dog involved, then get to doing it. And it doesn't have to be elaborate. In fact, it probably shouldn't be. Keep it simple and keep it fun. Then, post your pictures on social media with the hashtag BestSelves20 and see what everyone is doing. Good luck, have fun. We look forward to seeing the best of you.
There's pain and death and need, I know. But this one day, can't hear a sound. Sun on my face, warmth on my skin. My heart is full, I feel you within. One day of oasis where darkness can't intrude. To rest my weariness in your arms, pressed to your chest. Be still, quiet until light and peace and breath. One day to be sure of my pardon, to see more of the beauty created in me, destined to be gloried and rejoiced over, made anew. Be still, quiet until light and peace and breath.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Mark Leach here on the set of the Blair Witch Project And before we get started this morning, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who took up the Best Selves 20 challenge this last week. That was an idea that came out of a conversation with our living room group. And if you haven't gotten on board with coming up with some kind of creative way to step up to the Best Selves 20 challenge, it's not meant to be a bunch of work. It's meant to be something that's simple and fun and something you and your household and your family can kind of get together and do. One of our family members, our church family members, actually showed up on Fox 17 News this week with their Best Selves 20 project. And so if you don't know what I'm talking about, head on over to Facebook, search for the hashtag Best Selves 20, and challenge you to get on board with your own creative ideas, and then let us see those ideas. Also, before we get started this morning, I just want to say a big thank you to our viewers and our church family who have continued to be just so generous and support this ministry, even though we're not meeting in the traditional sense. Operations of New Vintage are still going on, and I'm so looking forward to getting back together, as I know we all are, but looking forward to getting back and sharing some of the things that God's been doing, some of the things that God has been redeeming this time, so that when we do get back together, we've got some great stuff to announce, to tell you about. The best way I know how to describe what's going on at New Vintage right now, kind of behind the scenes, as we're kind of finding a new rhythm in trying to redeem the time and use our time wisely right now, and that we can't get together. The best way I can describe that is last night, my wife and I, we went to St. Julian's Winery that's right up here near our home. It's and if you've never been there, totally recommend it. Wood-fired pizzas, great selection of fun wines. And so we've been there with friends. The manager recognizes us. When I went in to pick up our meal last night and bring it home, the manager, he says, "Hey man, really good to see you. Let me just give you a little sneak peek of something that we've been working on." And he takes me to the back of the restaurant, and in the back row where normally we would sit, because we kind of like it away from the door and where it's a little quieter, they've actually removed the whole back wall of seating, and they're halfway through constructing a brand new bar, so you could sit right up to the bar, do wine tastings at the bar, but it's going to look really sharp. You could tell he was excited about it, and I think that's a great picture of what's going on at New Vintage right now, is that we are really trying to use our time wisely behind the scenes while we're not gathering together, and there's just a new normal, a new rhythm. God is still at work, and so we're kind of been working on our own version of building the bar, so when we get all back together, some really cool stuff to tell you about. And so then I think the last thing I want to say is, we've been posting these messages during the quarantine now, coming up on a month, and we're able to see the analytics of who's watching and how long that y'all tune in for. And so what the analytics are telling us is that about 60%, more than half of us, are watching these videos all the way to the end. And so if you've watched to the end, I've tried to leave some fun little treats, like a prize at the bottom of a cereal box in there for you. Don't kick the tripod. But then the analytics are also telling us that about 40%, a little less than half of us, are tuning out at about the halfway mark. And so on one level, that's no skin off my back. I don't get a tip if you watch all the way to the end. But I do want to kind of throw this challenge out there to you, that there is something, I think, valuable about staying. There's something about sitting still and seeing something through all the way to the end. And so with today's content, today is going to be much less of anything that you would call a polished sermon, and this is really just kind of a fireside chat, and I want it to feel that way. I don't have any notes. I'm always talking from the heart. The only thing that notes help me do is kind of collect those thoughts in an orderly manner, so that when I'm talking, you're not just staring at me going, what is this guy even talking about? So I hope that this morning our time together is something that's valuable, something that's meaningful, something that's encouraging and connecting, and maybe even a little bit challenging. And the thing that I want to just take a few minutes this morning and unpack is there's the thing, and then there's the thing that comes along with the thing. There's the thing, and then there's our response to the thing. And so right now there's a thing. There's a thing in the air. And there's a thing that we can't control, which for me is brand new language. So there's the thing that we can't control right now. So much of life is disrupted, and all of us are out of our familiar rhythms, and we can't control that. Right now it's the end of April, and just down the road from us is the West Michigan Whitecaps baseball stadium. And at this time of the year, even though it's cold, the really hardcore baseball fans that are there for opening day and the opening weeks, they're not there. There's no baseball. There's no school. There's a stay-at-home order. And these are things that we can't control. There is a pandemic. There's a global concern. And that is absolutely out of my control. There's nothing I can do to stop it. There's nothing I can do to help it. I mean, aside from washing my own hands, and you know what I'm saying. But then there's my response to the thing. There's the part that I can control. And I want to just take a few minutes this morning to encourage you to be honest about what's going on inside of you as a response to the thing. Paul writes to the early church, and he writes in this letter in Ephesians chapter 5, and he says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity." I love the way the King James says it. It says, redeeming the time. And right now, in our disrupted state, we have an opportunity to redeem the time. You know, there used to be a day that this is what we as Christians were known for. We were known for making the best of a bad situation. We were known as the people that took something bad and redeemed it, made the best of it, used it for the glory of God and the good of others. There was a time that we were known as the people that sang in prisons at midnight. We were the people who rejoiced when we were wronged. We were the people that were known for giving a glass of cold water to our enemies. We were the people that were known as being strong and resilient. I don't know that that's our reputation anymore. In fact, I heard a phrase recently in the media. They're calling it the conservative Christian response. And what they mean when they use that term is a demographic of people that are whining and complaining about the government. There's the thing, and then there's our response to the thing. Are we making it better or worse? Sure, we may not know somebody personally who's been diagnosed with COVID-19 at this point. And maybe you don't know somebody close to you that has a direct need. And yet, we're challenged by Paul's words. Be careful how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, making the best of a bad situation. We're disrupted right now. And I think of the times that we've experienced a power outage here in West Michigan. Every summer, at some point, we can count on the fact that we're going to lose power. The storms roll in, come in off of Lake Michigan. Eventually there's a tree that comes down, or a tree branch, and there's the power outage. And like most of us, at least for me, I'm always in a hurry for the power to come back on. Like when those lights go out, oh crap. And I always hope that they're going to come back on in the next 20 or 30 minutes. And now life is disrupted. I can't turn on any devices. I can't open the fridge. I can't charge my phone. I can't run a fan at night, and I sleep with the sound of white noise. And so then what will happen is I'll look up on my phone a power restoration update. And, you know, I'm hoping that the power is going to be on, like, before I go to bed. And usually the website says something like Thursday. You know, it's Monday. Man. And there's a grieving. There's a grieving because my rhythm is disrupted. But then something happens. Something happens in the middle of all that. Something happens 20, 30 minutes in, an hour in. And we get out the candles. And we get out the playing cards. We get out the cribbage board and the Scrabble. And the whole family gathers around the table. And we do something that we haven't done before. See, there's the thing that we can't control. And then there's our response to the thing. And sometimes we need a disconnect here in order to have a reconnect over here. You know, for so many of us, when I talk to friends and family over the years, the big complaint I hear all the time is there's not enough time. There's just not enough time. There's not enough time to do all the things we really want to do. And I am just as guilty that it's easier for me to say yes to things that aren't A things. I tend to say yes to things that are B minuses. And so then the things that I really want to do, like connect and just sit with the people in my house, in my family, in my circle, in my tribe. We're not a people who sit still well. We're not a people who slow down to just be with one another. And so in the middle of this crisis, there's the thing, and then there's our response to the thing. And maybe this thing has a silver lining. Maybe this thing has a hidden gift underneath it, that it's disconnecting us from some old. It's disconnecting us. It's forcing us to leave behind, at least for now, an old rhythm. But it's inviting us to embrace a new one, a new rhythm. And isn't that the story of creation and the story of the gospel? Is, behold, I'm doing something new. As dark and uncertain and horrible as this global pandemic is, we see a God who is leveraging this and who is deeply involved in this for a much, much bigger eternal purpose than what is happening right now. And if you and I could slow down long enough to kind of pan the camera back and see the whole picture, or at least maybe not the whole, but at least some of the bigger picture, that there is a big God who is in control, and that we could really obey Psalm 46:10, to be still and know that I am God. and I will be exalted, he said, amongst the nations. This is a time that for us as the church to shine. That when people look at us, there's a peace, there is a stillness, there's a calm. That our response to the thing is not a response of anxiety, criticism, negativity, complaining. We've been, I think that we have made things that make us afraid the lightning rod for our internal fears far too long. As a child of the 80s, I remember when the subject of homosexuality and AIDS first came to the forefront. And we saw that with actor Rock Hudson. And he really became the lightning rod of criticism and critique and condemnation from the church. And we ostracized an entire community of people. We didn't redeem the time. We burned a lot of bridges that all these years later, a lot of churches and believers are trying desperately to rebuild. Jesus, in his life, he was approached by some lepers. In that culture, it was illegal for lepers to have physical contact with anybody else in their community because they were contagious and people were afraid. By law, they were quarantined. It means if your mom, your sister, your dad, your brother, your coworker was diagnosed with leprosy, they were quarantined, they were removed, and you had to live with, you were not going to have physical human touch for the rest of your life. You were required by law not only to quarantine yourself, but to yell through the streets as you went into town to purchase the things that you needed. You had to yell unclean, and it was so shameful. And there was the thing, and then there was the thing that came along with the thing. And people's response to the thing, people's response to these beggars and these lepers was, God must be punishing you. And man, how often it seems like every time there's a calamity in America, that's where I see a lot of my tribe, my Christian brothers and sisters go there. This is God's punishment. It's always God's punishment for the abortionists and the gay community. It's never God's judgment on the spiritually arrogant. It's never God's judgment on the greedy. It's never God's judgment on the gluttons. It's always God's judgment on a very specific people group that we have singled out as being super sinners. These lepers who are living with this stigma that God must be mad at you, there must be sin in your life for you to be suffering from this disease. Jesus breaks through that stigma and not only heals them, but he touches them, reaches out his hand and touches them. That was illegal. He could have spoken a word. He could have said something from a distance. He could have kept his distance. But he reached out and he touched them. There's the thing, and there's our response to the thing. Be careful. Be careful how you live. Not as unwise, but as wise. Making the most of every opportunity. Church, friends, obstacles are opportunities. I'm going to say that again. Obstacles are opportunities. And they are opportunities to see the power of God in action. I'm not telling you to take off your face shields and your hazmat suits and just go out in public and start touching everybody. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that there is the thing, and there is our response to the thing. So, let's do this right. Let's do this well. Let's tell a story during this crisis. Let's tell a story in 2020 that when we get to 2023, we can look back and hold our head up high and say we did that to the glory of God and for the good of our fellow man. Let's tell a story where the world, the media begins to turn like Fox News did this week with one of our own church family members. What would happen if we got the media's attention and they looked at us and said, hey, maybe these Christians aren't exactly the people that we made them out to be. Or maybe they were exactly who we thought they were, but they've turned a corner. Maybe they'll see a new side of us, which is really the old side of us. It's the thing that we used to be known for. We used to be catalysts, not sponges. We used to be salt and light, in love, in truth, and we spoke the truth, and we spoke it in love. And boy, we've really drifted on both those ends. We tend to divorce one from the other, all truth or all love. So let's bring our best selves. Let's bring our new selves. Let's embrace some new rhythms. Let's redeem the time. Let's be still. Develop some new rhythms with your Heavenly Father. Develop some new rhythms with the people in your household. Sit. Talk. Connect. Pray. Enjoy. Redeem the time. Thank you, everybody, for just kind of tuning into this fireside chat. I appreciate you guys. I want to tell you about one last quick resource, shameless little plug. For a number of months, I've considered doing a podcast apart from the work I do directly on Sunday mornings with New Vintage Bible Church. So this week I launched my own podcast, and I really wanted a platform that was informal, a place that I could just kind of think and talk outside of the box of some of the limitations that I feel like I run into in church world sometimes. And maybe they're not limitations that are actually there. Maybe they're limitations I put on myself or hear from other people. But if you'd like to maybe engage with some content, I've launched this podcast called Here's a Thought with Mark Leach. That's me. And the first episode is up and running now. It's just bite-sized conversations about pretty much everything. And so I hope that you find that to be just a fun, relaxing, thought-provoking listen. Here's a Thought with Mark Leach. And then, as always, if you'd like to support this ministry or continue to support this ministry, thank you. You can click over to newvintagebiblechurch.org. You'll see the contribute button there in the menu. And then lastly, if you need help, if you need resources that we could help with, we've got a great church family of people. A lot of us have already stepped forward in the last weeks and just said, hey, if somebody contacts, we can offer this, this, and this. And so there are some resources available, and there's people that would love to connect with you if you need anything. Please don't hesitate. NewVintageBibleChurch.org. You'll see the contact form at the bottom of any page on the website. Thank you, church family. Stay well, stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
And now it's time for Silly Songs with the Bigelows, the part of quarantine where the Bigelows come out and sing a silly song.
We are the Bigelows who don't do anything. We just stay home and lie around. And if you ask us to do anything, we'll just tell you we don't do anything. Well, ever since this quarantine, we practice social distancing. We stay 6 feet from everyone if we go out at all. Now I only look at cornfields from this house that I have been sealed, and I pray we get released before the fall. We are the Bigelows who don't do anything. We just stay home and lie around. And if you ask us to do anything, we'll just tell you we don't do anything. And we never go to Starbucks, and we never go to movies, and we never even leave town to see our friends at all. And I can't go get a haircut, and I can't go get my brows waxed, and we haven't got the dog groomed since last fall. We are the Bigelows who don't do anything. We just stay home and lie around. And if you ask us to do anything, we'll just tell you
we don't do anything. Well, last winter killed my roosters, and I've never really been strong, and I've never checked if pasta's cooked by throwing it at the wall, and I've never dressed in steampunk, and I've never fed snakes live mice, and I'm pregnant now, so I can't drink at all.
Huh? What are you talking about? What do roosters and cooking pasta have to do with being in quarantine? Or what we've been doing? And who's ever dressed in steampunk? The song's supposed to be about what's happening now.
Well, I've never seen a bedbug, and I've never poked a bed slug, and I've never missed a bad joke because I'm a big goofball, and I've never slept in a year, and I'm not too good with endings.
You just don't get it.
And I pray we get released before the fall.